You know, when I was a kid, my two younger sisters used to sometimes speak to each other in a secret language they had made up. They claimed that they had invented a whole new dialect with its own unique words and sentence structures and rules of grammar. It was pretty clear to me at the time, even more clear to me now looking back in hindsight, that they were just babbling gibberish to each other and primarily doing it to annoy me, and they succeeded. And I sometimes reflect on those more innocent times and I think about how my annoyance would have turned into crushing despair had I known what sort of world I would find myself in as an adult. If only I had known that I would one day live in a society where lots of people have invented their own secret gibberish languages and that we would all be expected to listen to this gobbledygook and take it seriously and even speak it ourselves. I think if someone had told me that, or told me like anything else about modern society, I would have simply gotten on a boat and set sail into the Pacific and found a remote island somewhere far away and isolated and lived out the rest of my days there. In fact, this is an option that I'm still actively considering even now, especially after seeing things like this. Time magazine, attempting to win the Nobel Prize in virtue signaling, published an interview last night with the author of a pornography book called Genderqueer. And we'll have more on that book later on. But they tweeted a link to the article with this caption. This is what it says. Time spoke to genderqueer author and illustrator Maya Kobabe about air work, the efforts to restrict access to air writing, and what A make of the current cultural moment. Now, those aren't typos, though it would be impossible to tell if they were. These are rather the pronouns that the author Maya identifies as. This is made clear in the article itself. Reading just a small portion of it, it says, Maya Kobabe felt a wave of relief on Tuesday morning. Waking up on the West Coast, an early morning peek at emails revealed a Virginia court had dismissed a lawsuit seeking to label Kobabe's book Genderqueer as obscene and restrict its sale to minors in Virginia. The suit was among the latest in an onslaught of challenges to Kobabe's memoir, which was the most challenged book of 2021, according to the American Library Association. In the 2019 illustrated graphic memoir, Kobabe, who uses air pronouns, explores air process of coming out as non-binary and asexual. Kobabe, 33, isn't the only author to face serious new challenges to air material. According to research by PEN America, a nonprofit organization to advocate for free expression, 1,145 books by 874 different authors were banned from school libraries and classrooms between July 1st, 2021 and March 31st, 2022. In the wake of Kobabe's win in Virginia, Time spoke with the author and illustrator about air work, the efforts to restrict access to air writing, and what A makes of the current cultural moment. Now, it may sound like A, spelled E-Y, would be like the Fonz's personal pronoun, but the Fonz lived before our society had one big collective stroke and started babbling nonsensically to each other. These are rather non-binary pronouns, so-called neo-pronouns, which is to say that they are words Maya simply invented in her troubled head and now demands we all use in reference to her. The argument often put forward in defense of neo-pronouns is that although they're made up, well, so is every other word in the English language. This same talking point has been trotted out today by those looking to defend Time magazine. But, of course, it isn't true. The English language is learned, not made up. As far as you're concerned, okay, you didn't invent the English language, neither did I. We don't leave children alone to come up with their own words for everything and then slap the label of English onto whatever they come up with. We teach them what words are and what they mean. Now, it's true, obviously, that every word we speak was at some point in the past formulated, right? It made up, if that's how you want to put it. But this follows a logical process, and the words all mean something, and that meaning is understood and shared by everyone who speaks the language. These are the two ironclad rules of language. It must mean something to be a word, and it must be shared. It must be a shared meaning. If either two of these rules are not followed, you don't have a language, you have gibberish. And by insisting that each person can simply come up with their own words and that those words don't need to really mean anything at all, the left is not proposing changes to the English language, neither are they helping it to evolve. They are instead destroying it, breaking it down, demolishing it. which is what they do to literally everything. I mean, look at it like this. The sentence, "Please pass the salt," contains 4 words. Now, each of those words came into being at some point in the past. They weren't invented by one single identifiable person, okay? But rather they formed and evolved in a logical and understandable way. There's a whole field of study called etymology, which examines exactly this process of linguistic evolution. But if I were to one day simply decide that instead of saying, "Please pass the salt," I am going to say, "Gabaguda flabadi," everyone else at the dinner table would look at me confused and assume that I'm either demonically possessed or attempting a very bad impression of a 90s era Adam Sandler. That's because I cannot just decide on my own to replace existing words with words that have logical, etymological origins with random sounds that I came up with. That's not how language works. And yet even this example at the dinner table does not capture the absurdity of the left's pronoun nonsense, because at least in the case of the dinner table, I can tell you what my gibberish means. It means pass the salt. But the person with the neo-pronoun can't explain what it means, because it means nothing. What does it mean to be an EM-air? What is that? Nobody can tell us. Nobody can explain it, because it's simply nonsense. It's nonsense all the way down. It's nonsense on top of nonsense on top of nonsense. And when you get to the bottom of the stack of nonsense, you find nothing. You're just hovering in an abyss. It is a made-up word which symbolizes nothing. Nothing, that is, other than the overwhelming narcissism of the individual who uses it. I mean, whatever else the non-binary person, quote unquote, claims to be communicating with her pronouns, what she's really conveying is that she is pretentious and self-absorbed in the extreme. That's what all of these pronouns really mean. It means I am incredibly, incredibly self-absorbed. Now, there may be something else going on here too, as I was thinking about it. It's possible that part of the strategy with the neo-pronoun is to make the left's other attempts at language manipulation seem less extreme by comparison, right? Maybe they're pretending to try to get us to use EM-air or ZZEM zebra or whatever, so that we'll throw up our hands and agree to call a man she or a woman he, so long as they just leave it at that. You know, maybe that's the idea, because in reality, no one is actually going to use those pronouns. No one, no normal person, nobody is going to go around saying EM-air. No one's going to do that. And they must know that no one's going to do it. So maybe part of the idea is, all right, well, if you won't do this, then at least do this other pronoun stuff. My kids sometimes use a similar strategy. You know, they'll come up and say, "Hey, Daddy, can you buy us a grenade launcher?" "What? No, I can't. Okay, well then can we just have ice cream at least?" And this might be part of the idea, though I may be doing the left an undeserved favor by assuming that they're as clever as, you know, my 9-year-olds. And yet, we've been so hung up on the gibberish that we haven't even discussed the book that this person wrote. And that might be another part of the plan here. This is the book that Time magazine is promoting. That book, Genderqueer, is a work of outright pornography with content so explicit and outrageous that I can't show it to you, and I can't even describe it to you. Suffice it to say that there are explicit images of various sex acts, along with scenes so depraved that you couldn't even anticipate them. So if you're imagining like what a pornographic book might consist of, yeah, it consists of a lot of that kind of stuff, but then also stuff that you wouldn't even think of. It's like just one example, which, fair warning, this is highly disgusting and disturbing. So, but this is one that I will describe to you. There is one scene in which the author depicts a conversation with her sister, where the sister suggests that she taste her own vaginal discharge. And then we're shown a panel with her finger covered in that discharge. Now, I told you, it's disgusting. But at the same time, as much as we want to cover our ears and say, I don't even want to hear about this, these are the books they're putting in schools. They're putting these in schools for little kids to read. And what I just described to you is one of the less graphic moments of the book. It's like one of the only moments I can even describe. Putting it in schools across the country for kids. And when normal, decent people object to this sort of content being used to educate children, the left cries out in horror, claiming censorship and fascism. If you don't want explicit pornography taught to your kid in school like it's literature, then you're a fascist. Now, all in all, this whole story perfectly encapsulates our cultural moment, the entire thing, from the pronouns down to the book, right? Because it's inane nonsense on the surface. That's the air pronouns. Nonsense on the surface, and then when you look beneath the surface, what you find is vile, hideous, evil filth. Now, the good news, if we can call it good news, if there can be any good news, is that the nonsense is so nonsensical and the hideous evil is so hideous and so evil that the left is forcing people to finally make a choice. Like, there is no neutral ground anymore. That time is long since passed. Are you going to run around babbling absolute gibberish at the behest of narcissists intoxicated by the stench of their own farts? Are you going to do that? Are you willing to do that? Even if up until this moment you were the sort of person who said, I just want to be polite and I want to get along with people, and it doesn't hurt me if they want me to use the pronoun. Really? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't physically, well, actually, it would physically pain me to use those pronouns in a non-ironic way, but maybe it wouldn't physically hurt you. Yet, are you really going to do that? Are you going to keep a spreadsheet, maybe carry a clipboard around with a spreadsheet, keeping track of all the gibberish words that each person that you know, each egomaniacal narcissist you know demands you use, and before you refer to them or about them, refer to that clipboard? Are you going to do that? Are you going to tolerate literal pornography being taught as literature to children in school? Or are you going to finally draw the line and say, no more? I've had enough. This is it. No. You can cry about it, okay? You can say your feelings are hurt. You can call me a bigot. I don't care. The answer is no. Stop talking. Stop demanding. No. Are you going to say that? That's the choice they're forcing. It's a time of deciding. I know what my answer is. You have to decide what yours is. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the notification button to get more content like this. If you want to watch or listen to the full show, head to dailywire.com and subscribe today. You can also listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.